Ladies and gentlemen, what is up and welcome today to the October tier list update. Now, I think last month in the game has been a little bit more on the quiet side because, firstly, we haven't had kind of a big new piece of permanent content, stuff like Act 6.3, 6.4, Variant 4, and also the Abyss of Legends is, however, just around the corner. But this month, man, a little bit more on the quiet side, and also the champion changes to Old Man Logan and also Colossus the buffs have still not arrived. I think they're speculated to arrive at some point this month, but it could be tomorrow, it could be like a week, 2 weeks. We don't really know exactly at the moment, so I think they are working on putting the final touches on those buffs before they put them live. So yeah, today we just have 2 new additions and also 1 demotion to have a little bit of a chat about. So it's not kind of the biggest tier list mix-up ever. However, in today's video, we are going to talk a fair bit about Black Widow Clairvoyant and also Vision Arcus as well. But before we do that, I just want to shell out the standard tier list disclaimer that this is to be used as a very rough guide to what I personally believe are some of the best champions, the most valuable characters overall in the game, because there are so many different matchups, characters, modes of gameplay, nodes as well, and depending on all of these factors, a champion could be absolutely amazing or just a little bit rubbish. So just use it for what it is, a rough guide. And if you are kind of ranking up a champion, definitely kind of look into particular rank up and gameplay videos and think about whether or not that champion is going to be the answer to the content that you're trying to tackle. So yeah, man, use it for what it is, a bit of a rough guide, because there are a lot of characters in this game, man. Almost been going for 5 years now, so there's almost, I think, about 150 champions on this list. So yeah, man, rough guide is rough. That is the point, ladies and gentlemen. But the key here, we have stars next to a champion's name, indicates that a character has a large benefit from their awakened ability. The kind of muscle icon there indicates that a champion has a large benefit from a high signature level there. The kind of love emoji with another person indicates that champion has a large benefit from synergies. Then the blue up arrow indicates that champion needs fights in order to ramp up and access their full potential. And finally, the person doing a handstand indicates that there is a high skill cap required to that champion. So that's a character, if you want to get the most out of that character, you need to look into some videos and practice. So that's kind of a rough key to kind of help you identify the value in various champions kind of across the board. So now that we got those super fun reminders out the way, let's have a little bit of a chat about Black Widow Clairvoyant, who is the first addition to the tier list today, going straight into the gold tier. Now, Black Widow Clairvoyant can be immune to bleed, poison, or incinerate depending on her stance. So if a matchup has one of these debuffs, she can be a really, really good counter. She's quite versatile in terms of what she can deal with as well, being a triple immunities champion, but also does have a little bit of a drawback that she can only be immune to one of these buffs at any single time there, and she works really, really well with the suicide masteries, because any matchup you start off in the bleed immune stance, so you're immediately immune to the bleed, and if you shift to the plague stance, the poison stance, then you can get rid of the poison as well. So in one combo, you can get rid of the poison. So yeah, you just get rid of those debuffs very, very easily. And kind of deeper into the fight or deeper into the quest, you can also regenerate quite a lot using the special too, and that's further enhanced by the suicide masteries. So yeah, she works really, really well with those, man. Very popular amongst a lot of endgame players at the moment. I know Legacy certainly does love his Clairvoyant. Also, regardless of her stance, the special 2 inflicts a 10-second buff immunity on the opponent, so this prevents them from getting buffs for the duration, but also when they would gain buffs, it gives her Clairvoyance charges, and these can be used to nullify buffs on contact. So she has a very strong ability to nullify. Overall, in terms of nullify, I still do prefer Symbiote Supreme, just because Symbiote Supreme is insane that you can just strip off all of the buffs of the special 3, but also the fact that you can layer up all the staggers via his hits and also his passive ability via the signature ability. I kind of like Symbiote Supreme a little bit more for buff scenarios, but Black Widow Clairvoyant is awesome for dealing with buff heavy matchups as well. So she's very, very good for those. Also, she has access to a strong regeneration via her Curse of Blood stance and Special 2, access to a good power steal via the Curse of Plague, which is the Poison stance and Special 2, and she has access to Some very decent burst damage with the, what is it, the Curse of Hellfire and Special 2 there. So depending on your curse, like the Special 2 does different stuff, but all of those can be useful in various matchups. And also, I think one of the best parts about Black Widow is she doesn't really need her Awakened ability, because it's a very nice to have. It's a bit of a niche for like the majority of matchups, but it has its uses. It essentially allows you with the Special 3 Death Touch to cheat death if you were to die while you have that active, so you do need to gain like Clairvoyance charges in order to get duration out of that. But yeah, it's not bad to have, but like even unawakened, she's got all of the stuff that makes her a really desirable champion. So, you know, I love a good champion that doesn't need to be awakened, that you can just get from a crystal and be really, really excited about. So yeah, that's very, very nice there. However, I do think she does have a few cons that, at least for me, have kind of kept her out of the Beyond God tier for now. I'm trying to be a little bit more conservative when it does come to my Beyond God tier placements. So I think, you know, she does have lower damage output than the majority of, like, endgame champions. And she can feel like a bit of a noodle without Suicide Masteries and also Mystic Dispersion. She also can't be immune to 2 of the same debuff at any single time. So matchups where you're kind of taking multiple debuffs, you know, she can be really, really gimped or just not a viable option for those matchups there. But also in some matchups where you're dealing with a particular debuff, you're potentially like locked into a single stance. So if you're fighting like a biohazard node, you're taking like a load of bleed damage there, you want to stay in the stance where you are going to be immune to bleed. So it means you can't go into the Plague stance and like access the Power Steal, or you can't go into the Hellfire stance to access the damage there. So her utility can somewhat be limiting in certain matchups and scenarios. But overall, man, I really like Black Widow. I think she's a really, really good addition to the game. And yeah, a great champion to have if you do run the Suicide Masteries. So yeah, overall, man, I think she's a very, very solid God tier champion. Maybe I think time will tell whether or not she's going to get that Beyond God tier promotion, but maybe there is a little bit of potential there. But yeah, we're going to have to wait and see on that one. Then next up, we got the second new edition of this month, Vision Arcus. And I think Vision is overall a decent enough edition, but this character I think could have been like a lot better than he actually is. But I think he does some good stuff, so let's have a chat about the pros. So he's got some decent damage output with a lot of power gain, which can be very useful for like special intercepting in certain scenarios, and also firing off a lot of special attacks. It does feel like a pretty fun time. He can also shut down robots with his armor shatter mechanic, although this is a little bit more annoying to get than Medusas. And also, if you do have the Vision synergy with like Vision Age of Ultron or Vision Classic, then this allows him to shut down like any tech champion with a metal tag. So champions like Mysterio, Iron Man Infinity War, and Red Skull, you can shut down their ability accuracy and also their power gain as well. So I think he's going to have some like interesting uses in future content, like just for that synergy, man. So you know, it's not a bad one there. He's also a pretty solid evade counter with Cold Snap, so as long as you can armor break the opponent and apply Cold Snap, then the opponent cannot evade. So this is a really, really nice thing for the champion to have. It does make him you know, one of the better evade counters in the game, but certainly not too bad. But any scenario where there's like debuff immunity, like this isn't going to work. So you know, that's a little bit limiting as well. Now, next up on Alliance War Defense, this champion is basically like a bit more of an annoying version than Hyperion. His power gain's a little bit stronger, and also you've got the armor breaks and Cold Snap to deal with, and the Special 2 is a little bit more tricky to evade. So Alliance War Defense, even though this list is offense or not defense, I think he's going to be like an annoying addition there, which is super, super fun. But any Mystic champion with a strong Nullify can really shut this man down. So, you know, there are counters out there. And then the final thing is that he's another champion, very much like Black Widow, doesn't really need to be awakened. However, the awakened ability is a nice little bonus because it gives him a chance based on the signature level, and when you've got him fully maxed out, this is a guaranteed chance to shrug off a non-damaging debuff. So matchups like the Invisible Woman can immediately clear like that invisible debuff she puts on you to kind of make her visible again. So again, he's got a little bit of utility with the awakened ability, but again, you are going to need like max signature level to get the reliability off that one. So yeah, it's not super great unless you want to invest a lot in this man, but hey, maybe that's that's going to be useful for some matchups in the future as well. Then we have the cons of Vision Arcus. So overall, this dude is like very much in the shadow of a lot of the god tier, beyond god tier cosmic champions, and a lot of the characters up the top can just do like stuff that he does like a fair bit better, and also more stuff on top of that. This champion also has no immunities whatsoever, so he doesn't even have like a poison immunity there, or cold snap immunity, incinerate immunity, so that makes him very, very lacking in a lot of gameplay modes. He also has no utility aside from the evade counter, and also the ability to shut down robots there, and his armor shatter has actually been gimped to not function as an armor break for opponents like Killmonger and Emma Frost and Kabam. They've acknowledged this publicly. I don't know why they gave Vision Arcus like a worse armor shatter. It's kind of really confusing. I just don't really understand the logic behind it, because even if it did like function like normally, he still wouldn't be anywhere close to an overpowered champion. So I really don't get that one. But also the armor shatter is a lot more annoying to kind of like build up and get in comparison to Medusa, because Medusa, it's very easy. You just do like double medium special 1 and you've got the armor shatter. But with Vision, you need to play very close proximity, like stack up the armor breaks, refresh them with a special 1, and they have a chance, because it can be a little bit annoying at certain times if the opponent isn't playing very aggressively, to kind of keep those armor breaks up, refresh them as well. So yeah, that can be a little bit of a pain. And also this champion is very reliant again on like debuffs and also buffs. He needs his armor shatter in order to get the fury, and he needs his like armor breaks to stack up in order to get the armor shatter, and he needs his power game buffs in order to have like a decent level of damage output. So yeah, it relies on buffs, debuffs. So I think Vision Arcus, like in the right scenario where he can just get in, do his thing, he is a really decent champion. But like overall, he's a very lacking character. I think they did kind of miss the mark a bit on Vision Arcus. So yeah, I kind of wish they did a little bit better, man. But he's certainly not the worst addition to the game. I think if you got Vision Arcus, you know, as a new player, as one of your first like 4-star, 5-star champions, he'd be a really good champion to have and would do a lot for you throughout all sorts of content. But again, just comparatively speaking, if you have a lot of the options available, he's just not really like that much of a good champion in comparison to the crazy options at the top of the cosmic class. Then also we have a demotion. So sticking with the negative for now, I've moved Cull Obsidian down from beyond god tier to god tier. And I took a lot of time thinking about this one, man, and especially kind of like drafting up my best 5-star champions to rank 4 list. I'm playing about with Cull Obsidian a fair bit. I think he's much more suited to the god tier than the beyond god tier, because I think he has lower overall value than Hyperion, Corvus, Medusa, and also the MCU version of Captain Marvel. But also this champion is subject to nerf in 2 months' time, so his damage is probably going to be toned down a little bit. They haven't mentioned anything about block proficiency going up, and I think that's something as well to you know, really talk about when it does come to Cull Obsidian, because his block proficiency is a fair chunk lower than the average champion. Like, even fully maxed out, like on your average fight, he's taking a lot of chip damage, and you need to build this character up. You need like a few fights, and for the first few fights, his damage output is a little bit lacking, but once you really get into it, man, his damage is absolutely insane. However, in those first few fights, you take like so much damage via the parries, and he's very reliant on also parry and heavy attack in order to stack up the armor breaks. So for a lot of the endgame content like Variant, Act 6, I find him very potion intensive, and like nobody is really playing Cull Obsidian in top tier Alliance War Alliance Quest just because the block damage is like way too risky. And again, building up this champion, man, it's just not really worth it in the majority of scenarios when it does come to those modes of gameplay. So I think Cull, you know, he's certainly got his really good uses throughout like certain paths in Variant, and also Act 6 as well, but overall I just personally feel like he is a little bit lower than what I consider like beyond god tier level value. And again, I kind of feel like it's the right decision, especially because there is a champion evaluation with Cull Obsidian coming in a couple of months. The damage is apparently going to be lowered even more, and when he is nerfed, if they bring just the damage down, then he's very much going to be just like a god tier champion, maybe even high demigod after that, depending on how bad it is. But I really hope Kabam can actually like balance this dude out, because if they just give him like some really good block proficiency and kind of lower the damage down like a little bit as well, I think that's kind of the perfect way to balance this man out, because even in his current state, man, I just feel like Corvus, Hyperion, Medusa, and Captain Marvel movie are just kind of better, more desirable champions for the majority of content in the game. But again, he's still got his uses, man. He's certainly not a bad champion by any stretch of the imagination. He's just you know, a little bit impractical to play in some forms of content, and a bit of a pain to ramp up as well. But I still like Cole, man. He's still a really, really fun champion. Now, one final thing is that I'm considering a Beyond God tier promotion for Warlock, just because I think this champion is insane for, like, any progressing player. Like, he is amazing for all three of the variants, Variant 1, Variant 2, Variant 3, but also Act 6, Act 5, Alliance Quest, Alliance War, like, monthly uncollecteds as well. Any scenario where there's a mass amount of regeneration, he's really good for like Havoc, Sabertooth, Mr. Sinisters. Like, this champion is so good for about like 80% of what I would consider the big problems in the Marvel Contest of Champions endgame. So I think there is a very strong case for a Beyond God tier promotion for Warlock, just because I think I read this in a comment the other day. Somebody described Warlock as kind of like the Blade of 2019. Like, Kabammoth introduced all of these big annoyances, these big problems, and Warlock is just like an answer to the majority of them. So I really like Warlock, man. I think he's a really good character, and I've seen him get like so much love, but I want to wait like one more month before I do it, just to kind of reflect on him and see if in a month's time he's still like an absolutely banging champion that a lot of people are loving. But I have a very, very strong feeling he will be. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the end of today's tier list update video. If you did enjoy it, please do smash that like button. That'd be greatly appreciated. Aside from that, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.